Hi friends, most of you watch my channel without a subscription. Subscribe if you like my videos. Have a great vacation.
Threw the backpack on the floor. She had to put up with this man for so many years. How much longer would it be until her mother realized that he was a horrible person? I'm telling you once again that I don't want him to come to my prom. He's not my father and never will be, Catherine said again to her mother. Emily looked at her daughter, frowning sadly. Catherine, darling, don't say that. Matthew does everything for you, and he treats you like his blood daughter. Thanks to him, you can go to the prom. We can afford to buy a fancy dress for you, and we have everything we need. Don't say that. It's not right. I hate him. He doesn't deserve you. He's taking advantage of you, and you don't realize it. You're just a maid to him, keeping the house clean and serving him. When will you understand that? It's been 5 years, and it's like you don't realize it. Catherine continued her speech, hoping for a miracle. But her mother only shook her head. We found ourselves in a terrible situation after your father died, and it was Matthew who helped us, and we should be grateful to him. He married me, gave us a home, and even offered his last name to you, but you refused. You should understand that he loves us, maybe in some unusual way, but he does, that's for sure. Catherine kicked the backpack away with her foot and said nothing. There was silence in the room for a few minutes, and then her mother left the room, leaving Catherine alone with her thoughts. Catherine collapsed on the bed, burying her face into the pillow. She screamed, letting out her anger, but the pillow muffled her scream. A few minutes later, Catherine rolled over onto her back. No, she will never accept this person. Her mother should not even try to change her mind. Her stepfather had never done anything wrong to her. From the outside, it seemed to everyone that he really loved his wife and her daughter. But Catherine inherited her biological father's intuition. She and her mother were alive only because of his intuition. On the day of the accident, Emily and Catherine wanted to go with him, but he said no. That's why he was the only one who died in that terrible accident, and Catherine and her mother were left alone in this world. And now that gut feeling was telling Catherine that her stepfather wasn't so innocent, that he was hiding something. Catherine saw something alarming in his eyes, even though everything looked perfect. She thought he was a hypocritical liar, but her mother didn't think so. Besides, Catherine had no evidence to show her mother Matthew's true nature. Catherine sighed heavily and stared at the ceiling. She just didn't have the energy to fight with her mother anymore. It was hurting them both. Catherine decided that she had to endure the presence of her stepfather at her prom. She will endure, just so her mother will stop crying. But Catherine would turn 18 soon, and then no one would make her do anything she didn't want to do. Catherine came into the kitchen, hugged her mother standing at the sink, and said, "All right, let Matthew go to my prom. Don't ask me to make any more concessions to him." Emily hugged her daughter tightly. Everything would be all right, and Catherine would soon see that. 6 months passed, and events developed rapidly. Catherine finished high school with honors, passed her entrance exams perfectly, and was accepted into a prestigious university. Her stepfather was very happy for her. His smile looked so sincere. But Catherine saw some danger in his eyes. Something kept alarming her. But Catherine did not tell her mother about her feelings anymore. It was not a good idea. It was better to keep things to herself. Catherine had already finished her first semester. It was easy for her, but she could have done even better if she had tried harder. But Catherine had a new life, new acquaintances, and first crushes. She met a guy she was crazy about. The relationship between them was just starting to develop, and one day the guy suggested spending the whole day together. To do that, she had to skip her studies at the university. Catherine didn't worry about that since she could study the missed material from her textbooks, but her mother and stepfather shouldn't know that she was skipping classes. For some reason, her stepfather asked about her studies almost every day. Everyone got up at the same time that morning. Catherine was pretending that she was going to university. Emily was going to work, and Matthew had the day off. But he was going to be away on some business for the day, dropping Emily off at work. Catherine left the house first. She was going to walk around for about an hour so her mother and stepfather would have time to leave, and then she wanted to go back to change. She had a date coming up, and she wanted to look perfect. Catherine wandered dreamily in the park not far from her house, constantly glancing at her watch. Finally, 1 hour passed, and Catherine hurried quickly toward the house. There was silence in the house. No one was there. Catherine went to her room to change into a beautiful dress that made her look perfect. Today is such a great day, and I have to look excellent, the girl was talking to herself, not even trying to control her emotions. She stood in front of the mirror for a while, looking at herself from every angle, and then she went to her mother's bedroom to find that incredible red lipstick. A few minutes passed in search of the lipstick, when suddenly, Catherine heard the front door open. The girl froze because she knew she would be in big trouble if anyone saw her at home. She looked at herself in the mirror, trying not to make a sound. Then she heard her stepfather's voice. Damn, her worst fear had come true. If he saw her, she'd be in trouble. Catherine rushed to her mother's wardrobe. She would have to hide so no one would see her. She quickly hid in the closet and waited for her stepfather to leave. But events developed differently. Catherine heard a woman's voice. She first thought it was her mother. Then the woman's laughter convinced her that it was someone else. She frowned, trying to figure out what was going on. And a few minutes later, the door opened, and Matthew and an unfamiliar tall woman walked into the room. Catherine held her breath. Her heart was beating like crazy. So, Matthew is cheating on Mom. How did he have the nerve to bring her home? What a bastard, the girl thought to herself. Catherine closed her eyes, trying not to think about what was happening. But then she came to her senses. What was she doing? What a fool! She had to take this chance. She had to act decisively. Catherine forced herself to open her eyes and took her phone out of her pocket. She immediately switched it to silent mode so that no sound would give away her presence. Then, she turned on the camera on the phone. Sneakily, Catherine opened the wardrobe door a little and began filming the video. Visibility was great. Catherine took a video showing the faces of both of them. Then she took a couple more pictures. It was disgusting to watch this happen, but she needed to get the evidence. Now she could show her mother that Matthew was a horrible person, and that he didn't love her mother at all, but was taking advantage of her. An hour later, Matthew and his mistress left. Catherine came out of the wardrobe and ran out of the house. She decided to cancel her date with her boyfriend, so she called him and told him that she wasn't feeling well. She needed time to think about the situation. Now Catherine could break her mother's life by showing her the true face of her stepfather. But would she break her life to save it? Half an hour later, she called her mother. Mom, can you get off work early? Emily startled. Catherine, what's wrong? Are you okay? Did someone hurt you? Catherine hurried to comfort her mother. No, Mom, I'm fine, but I need to talk to you. I'll wait for you at the cafe near your office. An hour later, Catherine and her mother were sitting at a table. The girl didn't know how to start a conversation. Emily looked at her daughter in confusion, waiting for the conversation to begin. Finally, Catherine pulled herself together. She took her mother's hand, squeezing it tightly. Mom, forgive me for what I'm about to do, but I can't lie to you. Believe me, you deserve better, and you will have a wonderful life if you choose the right path. I will always be there for you. You have to understand that you and I will be fine, but only if you believe that and stop clinging to the past. Please listen to me and understand that I want us to be happy. And Catherine told her mother everything. How she skipped her classes, came home, and how her stepfather came home with that woman. She showed her all the pictures and videos she had taken. Emily listened silently to everything Catherine told her. Not a muscle flinched on her face. She watched all the pictures and videos in cold blood. Her hands didn't even tremble. There was a painful silence. Catherine looked at her mother, and Emily was looking down at her hands. There were no tears, no words, just an ominous silence. After about 10 minutes, Emily raised her eyes and sighed heavily. She took her purse and stood up. "Let's go home. We have a lot to do. We need to pack. Everything has to be done quickly, without wasting a minute. You have classes at the university on Monday. We have to find an apartment and move in over the weekend. I don't know how we can do everything by ourselves, but we have no choice. Come on, let's go, sweetheart." Catherine looked at her mother in surprise. The girl smiled because now she was sure they would start a new life. A year passed, and Catherine was waiting for her mom in that cafe near Emily's office. She was in high spirits. Her mom was walking briskly down the sidewalk. A man walked beside her and held her hand. He gave her something, and Emily laughed, stopped, hugged, and kissed him. Catherine smiled, remembering the events of the last year. She remembered how her stepfather and mother had argued that day, how they had packed their bags, and how quickly they had moved into the apartment they found accidentally. The owner of that apartment turned out to be Catherine's professor at the university. Mr. Simmons was Mom's age, and he showed real kindness by not charging them for the rent because he sincerely wanted to help them. After a while, feelings broke out between Emily and Mr. Simmons. It took time for Emily to trust him, but now they were inseparable. Catherine was really happy that it all worked out that way, because Mr. Simmons was a decent man, and he made her mom happy. And now they have become a real family. "So, are we going to celebrate, or are you going to keep dreaming?" said Emily, hugging her daughter from behind. Catherine snapped out of her memories. She kissed her mother and smiled at Mr. Simmons. "We'll celebrate your marriage all night long," the girl answered, rejoicing in their happiness. Why are your eyes full of tears again? What can we do if that's how fate works? I love you. After all, marriage is not only about children. Stephen comforted his weeping wife again and again. Eva remembered that happy day when she wore a beautiful white dress and Stephen wore an elegant suit. They swore to each other in eternal love and faithfulness. They thought then that it was a marriage for the rest of her life. Then everyone congratulated them, wishing them eternal love and many children. But for some reason, there was a problem with children. 2 years after the wedding, Eva got worried, went to the doctor with Stephen, and it turned out that she would never have children. Eva cried for a long time and called herself a worthless woman. Then one morning she got up with her eyes swollen with tears and said to her husband, "Stephen, we have to get a divorce." "What? Why?" wondered Stephen. "We've been doing fine so far." "I can't have children. You can meet another woman who can give you children," Eva said quietly. "Are you out of your mind? I don't need another woman. I love you. If you wish, we can adopt a child from the orphanage," Stephen said. "No, Stephen. A child from an orphanage is not our child. Do you understand? There won't be a part of you and me in an orphanage baby," Eva said sadly. "I understand. Then we will continue to live together, just you and me," answered Stephen, hugging his wife. Everything would be fine if Stephen's words were true. But gradually Eva felt that her husband was not telling her something. He was hiding something from her. Stephen had become thoughtful and introverted, and things had changed between them. It seemed to Eva that they were no longer so close, that she could no longer trust him. Eva, come on, stop making up nonsense. Stephen loves you, and you shouldn't doubt your husband's faithfulness. Her sister, Melanie, tried to reassure her over the phone. You don't understand. He comes home very late at night, but I can find an explanation for that. But what does he do on weekends, in holidays? Answered Eva to her sister. Well, maybe he leaves home because he can't see you crying all the time anymore. What's it like for him to stay home while you cry all the time? It's impossible, her sister said. Melanie, you don't understand. I cry all the time because I feel that my husband is lying to me, said Eva, and hung up. Her heart felt very heavy. She wondered, well, what did you expect, Eva? Sooner or later, Stephen will meet someone else who will give him a baby and leave for another woman anyway, Eva thought. Eva was still thinking a lot about the fact that all she could do now was wait. She felt that it was so humiliating, and that she should behave with dignity and not torment Stephen with her tears. In the evening, she greeted her husband with a smile and questions about the day. Stephen, who had long forgotten about his wife's smile, was overjoyed and happily answered questions. He smiled. Moreover, Eva cooked a delicious dinner. It was the first time in a while. A quiet, cozy family night. But Eva was in a good mood only until morning. At night, she had a dream about Stephen, walking proudly with a baby girl in his arms and holding the hand of some woman. She woke up crying again. Eva, what happened again? Everything was wonderful yesterday. Stephen hugged her gently by the shoulders. Stephen, I can't take it anymore. Let's get a divorce. I feel that you're not with me anymore. And sooner or later, you'll leave me anyway, she said to her husband. Stephen's hands shook. Oh my goodness. He rolled his eyes. That's impossible. That's it. I'm going fishing. Fishing? Seriously? Stephen, what about me? You're not even trying to explain anything to me. Eva tried to stop her husband. I have nothing to explain to you. I love you, but my nerves are not made of steel, the husband said nervously. Stephen slammed the door loudly and got out. Eva watched as he tossed the rods into the back seat and drove away quickly. Eva stayed in bed all day, tormenting herself with painful thoughts. Stephen and some woman and a baby from the night's dream were still in front of her eyes. Actually, I can easily check whether he's really away on a fishing trip. He only went fishing in his native village. I will go to his mother's now and ask how often he visits her, and if he actually visits her, the woman thought. Eva quickly wiped away her tears. Packing for the sudden trip made her perk up. Her compact car was driving quietly down the road, and Eva dreamed of one thing: how she would find out the truth, and expose this deceiver, and look him in the eye. Yes, it will be hard. Maybe I'll have to file for divorce, but at least the painful doubt and humiliating lies will be over, she thought all the way. Finally, she reached the house. Her husband's car was standing at the gate of her mother-in-law's house. At least he didn't lie today, she thought with some relief. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. McLean, rushed out on the porch to meet her daughter-in-law. Oh dear, I wasn't expecting you. Stephen didn't say anything, she said in a surprised voice. Don't worry, Mrs. McLean. I just thought I'd spend Sunday with you, Eva answered. That's great, I'm glad you came. Stephen comes here every weekend and you haven't been here in a long time. There was a slight reproach in her mother-in-law's voice. Eva was glad that she didn't even have to ask about the weekends. Mrs. McLean told her everything herself. Well, where's Stephen now? The woman asked. He took Lily and went for a walk by the river, her mother-in-law told her shamelessly. It was beyond Eva's comprehension. She couldn't stand it any longer. Mrs. McLean used to treat her well, but now she supports this cheater? What a duplicitous, lying woman, Eva thought. Well, I'll go to the river and find him there. Eva hurried to the river. Wait, honey, he didn't go by himself. He'll be back for lunch. Her mother-in-law tried to stop her, but there was no chance in stopping her. She rushed to the river, almost running. Her heart was pounding, and she was out of breath. But the thought that she had to stop this deception gave her strength. Before she even reached the river, Stephen was walking toward her, holding a little girl by the hand, just like in that dream. Except the woman wasn't there. Eva stood, waiting, looking at her husband as he approached. Deception was finally over. "Hello, Eva," her husband muttered in surprise. "Hello, Stephen. I felt like going fishing too, so I thought I'd come over." "And who is this girl?" Eva pointed to the little girl, hiding fearfully behind Stephen and looking at her. "That's my daughter, Lily. She's 5. Her mother died recently," the man said quietly. "Why didn't you tell me about it? Why did you hide it?" the woman asked. "I was afraid that I could lose you. At the same time, I couldn't abandon my daughter. I remembered your words when I told you about a baby from the orphanage," the man excused himself. "Well, Lily is not someone else's baby. She is your baby," Eva exclaimed. They went home in silence, thinking. They did not want to scare Lily, and this kind of talk is not for children's ears anyway. Stephen decided to talk to Eve only when a caring grandmother took the little girl away. "I only recently found out that I have a daughter. Before I met you, I had a short relationship with a woman, and after we broke up, no one told me about the baby. Melissa, Lily's mother, loved to party and drink. She died under some strange circumstances. And then her mother went to my mother and told her the whole story. I didn't believe her, so I took a DNA test. That's when I found out I have a daughter. What was I supposed to do? After all, I couldn't abandon her, place her in an orphanage." "What orphanage are you talking about? She has a father. But it really hurts me that you didn't tell me about it before. Did you really think I wouldn't accept her?" the wife asked. "Eva, I'm sorry. I just didn't know how to tell you. I was in shock for a while." The man began to justify himself. "You and your secrets almost ruined our whole life. I had a feeling you were hiding something from me. Let's adopt Lily. It's not easy for your mother to take care of a child," the woman suggested. They sat on the porch, hugging, till Mrs. McLean shouted out the window, "Kids, are you going to have lunch or not?" "We're on our way," laughed Stephen, helping Eva up from the porch. "Mrs. McLean, we've decided to adopt Lily," announced Eva to her mother-in-law at lunch. The woman wiped away a tear and said, "Oh, thank goodness. Lily's a sweet, kind girl. My heart breaks when I think about how much she suffered with her good-for-nothing mother. I mean, she was always alone at home. No one took care of her." "What about the grandparents? Melissa's parents?" Eva asked. "They had no time for the child," she answered. "No one needed Lily." "So, Lily, will you come with us?" Eva asked the little girl when she woke up after her afternoon nap. "Do you want to be my mother?" the girl asked, looking trustingly into Eva's eyes. "I do," Eva replied. The girl hugged her and whispered, "Mommy, I'm going to be a good daughter, I promise. I will love you as much as I love Daddy." Eva couldn't answer anything. Tears rolled down her cheeks.